Essendon wins a dream time at the G. Thriller against Richmond. Wallulip continues its resurgence against the reigning Premier. And Bedlam on the bench as Sydney steals it from North Melbourne. This is the round so far, brought to you by AAMI. This is the round so far, brought to you by AAMI. I'm Riley Beveridge. This is Kane Cornes. Kane, it's been a dramatic Sir Doug Nicholls round so far. We'll start with Dreamtime at the G action at the MCG, where Essendon secured a late win against Richmond thanks to Sam Durham.
What a game of footy it was. What a round it was. In fact, the last quarter started to open up a little bit. There is Durham there. What a clutch moment for him to take the contested mark up against Rioli in the goal square and go back and do this with 7 seconds left on the clock. They took some real risks in the last quarter. They've definitely got a plan for when they're chasing the game late in the game, as we saw by Mason Redmond ducking out to the open side when he came in off the interchange bench. He got them going, but they had some of their really good players, including Zach Merritt, Durham, Ridley, stand up in the last quarter when it mattered.
They certainly did. They kicked 4 of the last 5 goals. Richmond took an 18-point lead early in this final quarter, but Essendon stormed home. Yeah,
they did. Dustin Martin kicked a couple of goals. He was terrific. I mean, he's got that look in his eye again, Dustin Martin. Almost unstoppable when he gets in that mood. Shea Bolton was terrific as well. We'll speak about Zach Merritt shortly, and we've spoken about this man and his last quarter. I think he had 8 disposals and a couple of goals in the last quarter. That Stringer from a centre bounce, he went bang. Wasn't his biggest night, Jake Stringer, but had some big moments, including that in the last quarter to keep the Bombers in touch. And gee, Redmond would have loved to have rushed this over the line.
He certainly would have. Judson Clark, the substitute, came on and kicked it. It was a pretty good finish in the end. But as we mentioned, Essendon just stormed home. They kicked a couple of clutch-like goals. This one fell for them really luckily in a sense. It was Jai Menzies getting on the end of this here and kicking the goal. But it goes to show for Richmond just how poor they've been over such a long period of time in close games. Now, have a look at this. This is their last 12 games decided by under a kick. They haven't won a single one of them. We couldn't even fit it on one page. We've had to do it over 2 pages. 3 draws, 9 losses, 0 wins.
So the aura's over with Richmond. The era is over. They're still a competitive football side, as we've seen. They're so inconsistent because good sides just don't lose that. And that is a significant trend over 2 pages, having not won one of those close encounters. I thought Brad Scott had a really good night from the coach's box. His ability to instruct his team to possess the ball, 140-odd marks they took, and the way that their defenders defended, with Redmond and Ridley both being pivotal to that. Richmond went inside 60 times for only 10 goals. So they're impotent, really, in their forward line. I know Lynch isn't there, but if you look at the injuries that the Bombers had, Shield and Parrish and Wright and Setterfield and Laverde, like they had injuries everywhere. They were decimated. Richmond were in a really good position, but they just can't close out the close ones.
Head to our Saturday star now, and it is Bombers captain Zach Merritt. He won the Yaukin medal for his best on ground in the Dreamtime of the G game. 39 disposals, 5 clearances, 3 goal assists as well.
We've got some good midfielders in this league, but we probably need to start talking a little bit more about this man's year. He was the obvious choice for captain, and I think he's doing an excellent job, even the way that he spoke to the media during the week. So, the wins haven't been there in the last month, but we're reasonably comfortable with the way that we've been playing. I think with Bontempelli, he's the best midfield kick in the competition. He just doesn't waste it. And this sort of stuff is what he has added to his game. He spoke about that in the pre-season, where he wants to be the best defensive midfielder at the club. And in those moments, late in quarters, for him to do that, to go with the 39 and the way that he uses it, significant moment for the captain of the Bombers, who is already a 3-time best and fairest winner.
We'll head to our moment of the weekend so far. It's Doug Nicholls round. It's such a special fortnight of action. And this was the scenes pre-game Dreamtime at the G. It was great to see everyone on both sides of the group get involved in this. At the end there, we see all the Indigenous Richmond and Essendon players link arms just there. And I thought it was fantastic. It was captured by everyone inside the ground as well.
100%. It's one of the most special moments that we have in the home and away season, if not the most special. I love learning and witnessing the culture. And then to see those Indigenous players light up the MCG in Sir Doug Nicholls round is so special, and that happened again tonight.
We'll head to Marvel Stadium now, where Sydney scraped over the line against North Melbourne. Now, this was such a controversial and bizarre finish, with an interchange infringement late gifting Sydney the winning goal. Let's have a look at how the umpires saw it play out.
What we get?
Interchange infringement, guys. Interchange. Brownie. Interchange infringement. Brownie.
Interchange infringement.
Interchange infringement against North Melbourne.
Against
Sydney
North
free kick.
Sydney free kick and 50-metre penalty for an interchange breach. Is that what we're saying? Yep.
So North Melbourne?
No, Sydney free kick. Sydney free kick. Sydney free kick. Okay, Hayden, your free kick for an interchange breach, and it's a 50-metre penalty. Okay, let's go with me.
So North Melbourne went over their allotment of 75 interchanges throughout the course of the game. They made a 76th one, which is the reason for that free kick. But I want to ask, did they also make a 77th one? Now,
77th.
Shields comes off for Greenwood. Powell comes off for Phillips. Powell for Phillips is the 76th change. Now, it's crucial to remember those names because this is 2 minutes after that change. Hayden McLean kicks the goal. Powell comes back off the ground. Now, whether or not they're trying to reverse it or what they're trying to do, it's Shields that comes back onto the field. So the AFL tonight is saying they're comfortable with the way that the call was adjudicated, but they're going to review it in the coming days to determine whether or not a 77th change was made and whether or not Sydney should have had another free kick and another 50-metre penalty from the centre square, basically taking him 30 metres out, another shot on goal.
It's extraordinary vision. To me, it looks like a 77th. That's the only logical explanation.
And if you are allowed to reverse it, that it should have been Phillips coming onto the field for Powell.
Should have been the same player. And we're not exactly sure, waiting for clarification on whether you're allowed to reverse it. I wouldn't understand why. Surely you've made the 76, the free kick and the 50 has been paid, and that's it. You can now make no further interchanges. If that's a 77th, the way that I would see it is it should have been another free kick and another 50 from where the ball was. So that is bizarre. Now, a lot of sympathy for whoever is the interchange steward at North Melbourne. Sometimes these roles are filled by part-time people who are just good stalwarts of the footy club that are there for the love of it. They don't get paid. So, you know, the heartbreak that would be in that person, I'm not sure who it is. It may not be. It may be a full-time staff member, but my experience would say that sometimes it is not. You've got to be feeling for that person tonight.
You certainly do. And you have to be feeling for North Melbourne because they were so good throughout the entirety of this game. We'll take a look at some of the late moments in quarter 4. They played such an exciting brand of footy and they showed a bit of heart, which is what we've been critical of them in the past couple of weeks. Of course, Alistair Clarkson not coaching. He's taken indefinite leave to focus on his mental well-being. But I thought the way they responded was really good and they were really unlucky.
Been waiting for the effort, haven't we? That's what we've been waiting for and that's what we saw today. And if they play this brand of football, they will win further games this year. They'll win multiple games for the remainder of the year. And you would think North Melbourne fans, this is all that they want to see. I mean, they smashed Sydney around the stoppages, plus 28 in stoppage scores, plus 20 in clearances. This is a side that played in the grand final last year. Yes, they've got injuries, as do North Melbourne. They were decimated with 6 changes this week. So that's what I've been crying out for. I've stood up here 6 or 7 times this year critical of North Melbourne's effort. I won't do that tonight, and if they continue to play that way, they will win multiple games for the remainder of the year.
They'll win plenty of fans as well, I would have thought. Buddy Franklin was fantastic in this game. Kicked 3 goals, but some of his efforts late with his chase-down tackles were just as influential. He was one of the best on ground.
9 marks, 5 tackles, which I loved, and 3 goals. He'd been flat, goalless in his last fortnight. John Longmire said he had the flu and perhaps only played because they needed him to. Griffin Logue would be really disappointed with a couple of his early efforts on Buddy Franklin. He hasn't been the player North Melbourne thought they were getting, so they had to put Ben Mackay on him, who did a reasonable job. But Buddy at his best brings the offensive stuff like that, but he brings the defensive stuff like this. Bang. I mean, that's a hard player to play against, and that one in the dying stages with 24 seconds left on the clock. That is Buddy at his best and goes 4th all-time on the goal-kicking list, which, I mean, he's going to be a legend in the Australian Football Hall of Fame, and it's great that we're still getting some really nice Buddy Franklin moments.
Now, before the late drama, the big story coming out of this one was one, George Wardlaw's debut, but also Harry Sheasel, thrown forward, kicked 2 goals. This was North Melbourne's number 3 and number 4 picks in last year's draft. Geez, they look like they've got some players there.
We'll get to Port Adelaide in a second, but one draft can change the whole directory of your footy club. Sheasel and Wardlaw, hopefully, is that for North, and I see no reason why that can't be. So Wardlaw should never play VFL ever again. He is seriously tough, and he's got power. He reminds me a little bit of Matt Rao, but he's got the outside explosiveness. So for him to do this, didn't look out of place, had some really good moments, and then Sheasel's just got to be a centre forward player now.
Yeah.
We know he can go to half back, and if you need him, that's nice, but the real players that win or lose games for you are those players in the forward half of the ground. Clearly, he can do that. So I hope Brett Ratton, for the time that he's coaching North Melbourne, leaves Sheasel forward, and it won't be as much as the footy, but it'll be maximum impact.
We'll head to the Gabba now, where Brisbane extended their winning streak over Gold Coast in the Q Clash. The Suns were within 5 points here, as we can see, and Brisbane then kicked the last 6 goals of the game.
Yeah, it felt like Brisbane were always in control of this game. You know, it just felt like they had control, and they put the foot off the accelerator a little bit and let Gold Coast back in. And Ben King kicked a couple of crucial goals on the siren at one stage, but then Brisbane just have another gear to go to. Their talent in this side is amazing. So they're equal top of the ladder now with Collingwood. Their percentage is really healthy. They've won 7 in a row. And as I think I said last week, if they finish top 2, they play in the grand final. So they just keep having to keep doing this. And, I mean, we were critical of them at the start of the year. Probably was wrong on how hard I went on the Lions early because, they're as good a shot at this premiership as any other team in the competition.
Brisbane's now won 9 straight against Gold Coast. Gold Coast haven't beaten them since April 2018. Now, before tonight, Essendon had lost 13 straight to Richmond, so we've had to wipe them from this list. They're out of this list in the longest current losing streaks. But Gold Coast against Brisbane now 9 straight. What do the Suns need to do to take the next step?
Well, they're frustrating because they have the odd good game, but they don't have enough depth. They don't have enough quality in their side. The same names roll through the midfield. Great to see Bailey Humphrey tonight. I thought it was a really positive sign to come out of it. Their first pick from last year. He looks a serious player, big-bodied midfielder, and had a stack of the footy. So they just need to keep unearthing more players like that. Go again to the draft, but they're not playing finals this year, and I wouldn't suspect they'll be in the mix next year either.
Lachie Neale won the Marcus Ashcroft Medal for best on ground in the Q Clash. 35 disposals, 10 clearances, 17 contested. I
want you to watch how clean he is. I think he, at ground level, is the best ground level player. Rarely, if ever, does he fumble. And I think what he has developed is his moment to step up when the game needs it. And that's what the best players do across all sports. In clutch moments, when you need to insert yourself on the game, he did that tonight, and he's just such a well-rounded player. Hasn't been like the massive big numbers throughout the course of the year, but it hasn't needed to be because Dunkley's in there, Ashcroft is in there, who was terrific again tonight, but he won the medal and deservedly so.
We head to Optus Stadium now, where Walyulup defeated Geelong. 3 straight wins in a row now for the Dockers, and 3 straight games where they've kicked 100+ points. Their ball movement was so much better.
That's the biggest thing. 3 straight games they've kicked 100 points. Now, this is wide, but it's fast. And there's nothing like super pretty about this, but fast ball movement, even numbers in your forward line, create a contest, then go to work at ground level. A miss kicked 3 goals. Now, this one reminded me a little bit of Richmond in the Dynasty era. So there's nothing pretty. Banfield, bang, forward, get it on. And then you run with momentum, you win a one-on-one contest there, you get it to an open forward line with speed, and it's not that hard. And you make the Premier from last year look second rate. So, look, 3 or 4 weeks away, I was critical of Justin Longmuir when he moved down to the bench and wasn't doing much. I think tactically he's made some real adjustments with their ball movement, and some of their better players who are down on form have really stepped up, and that's been led in the midfield. Sarong's been terrific all year, but Brayshaw has really lifted his intensity and his impact on games.
The Dockers had 100+ more disposals this afternoon. They had the top 9 ball winners on the field. The Cats didn't have a single player win 20 touches. Their midfield looked a little bit pedestrian as well, with Dangerfield and Guthrie out.
Yeah, amazing, isn't it? Like that's extraordinary. That's not a typo. There's not one Geelong player on that list. And how long since not a single Geelong player has had 20 disposals? You'd have to go back and check that. But they do look a bit sluggish through the midfield. I'd be a little bit concerned. You keep asking me about Geelong and when is the alarm bells going to start ringing? Not yet, because they've still got a lot of games at home and they're going to get the personnel back at some stage. But, they'd be a little bit concerned about what Brisbane and Collingwood and Port Adelaide and the Western Bulldogs, who we'll get to in a minute, are doing. And they are, well down in the pecking order now.
Jeremy Cameron held goalless by Luke Ryan throughout this one, who had probably an All-Australian form, Ryan, at the moment, but only one goal in the last fortnight for Jeremy Cameron. Yeah,
so if Luke Ryan can do this, then his reputation is going to increase significantly, because we know he's a good interceptor. We know he can get 30 behind the ball and take 15 marks. But if he continues to put his hand up for the best player in the opposition, the best forward, and quells them like he did. Now, Cameron's still, of course, going to get his opportunity, and a bit fortunate he was inaccurate, but he was all over him, Ryan. And like what Aaliyah has done, was known as an interceptor, but now plays in the opposition's best player.
Yeah.
If Luke Ryan can do that, then his reputation will increase significantly.
We'll head to our AAMI clangers now. Who covers clangers? AAMI does. Now, Kane, I'm not sure if you noticed this. 4 straight games, we had trainers nearly get in the way of the footy. So there's one.
You do not miss anything. Here's another one at Marvel today. There's 2 of them. Get out the way.
Nearly in the way. A third
Not a
one
third.
here. We got a Ballarat now in the kick. Have a look at this. This trainer's probably never run faster in their life, just sprinting away from the footy.
Close call.
And then Friday night at the Adelaide Oval, the runner nearly gets in the way.
Should have been a free kick, probably.
Actually,
Port
probably should have
Adelaide
been a
after
free
their
kick.
runner got in the way, but anyway.
We might stay there at the Adelaide Oval, where Yardapulti got the result against Naarm. I tell you what, it was a thrilling game in this last quarter.
I'm prone to making big statements,
Here we go.
so I'm not going to make a big one, but this is in the conversation of one of Ken Hinkley's best ever home and away wins. No Dixon, no Marshall, no Georgiades, no Rioli, no forward line, and he put players like Ollie Lord down there who competed. They were able to quell the influence of May and Lever, who have given them a lot of grief over the last couple of years, and what they were was seriously tough. They hunted Melbourne with an attitude that I haven't seen teams go after Melbourne like this in a long time. And then when the game's on the line, you let your elite class young midfielders go to work like Horn Francis. Watch that again 10 times and tell me how he actually did that. And Rosie finished. We'll get to Butters in a moment. But in terms of the way that they're playing and the way that that man is coaching, he's in the conversation as Coach of the Year. He's been superb. I tell you who's been superb for a long time now, and that's Zach Butters. It was absolutely lashing down. He had 41 disposals, 10 clearances and 2 goals. You sent a group text in about the first 5 minutes of this game, and you said Zach Butters' first 4 kicks of this game, absolutely elite, and he didn't stop there. So individually, I'm going to make a big statement now. This is the best individual performance of any player in the competition in 2023. What he did was unbelievable. The damage that he did with his disposals, he stood up and kicked big goals when the team absolutely needed it. I mean, they were hunted in the third quarter, and Petrarca and Oliver got a hold of them from stoppage. He was the one that really lifted. That is at a crucial moment. Look at the score there, and he slots that in the wet from outside 50. He's a little man, but he's got a big kick. So individually, the best game I've personally seen this year. Numbers. And that's why. So this is the game ranking: 41, 18 of those contested, 12 score involvements, 10 clearances, 8 inside 50. He even had 8 intercepts. So he's doing everything, even defensively. The marks, the goals, the metres gained. And as I said, Rosie and Butters have changed the trajectory of the Port Adelaide Football Club. And you add Horn Francis to that for the next 10 years, it's going to be hard to go past those 3 as, the best, trio in the competition's midfield. A man that went pretty underrated throughout the night was Ryan Burton. Now, he had the lockdown job on Jake Lever. They restricted Melbourne to 41 marks throughout the entire night. Now, I know it was raining, but it's the lowest Melbourne's ever recorded under Simon Goodwin. And a lot of these, Burton doesn't mark, but he just brings the ball to ground. So it's another tick for Ken Hinkley in the way that he is coaching. I haven't seen him coach better. He's been more prone to throw the magnets around a little bit. Like Darcy Byrne-Jones has gone forward. Finlayson, he sort of senses where he needs him. Aaliyah plays on the best opposition forward now. He's mixed up the midfield mix. Travis Boak's gone to a wing, and Ryan Burton, who traditionally has been a defender, as I said, no Marshall, no Dixon, no Georgiades. They needed someone to provide a contest, and I thought he did it really effectively. So they're the marks. 41, the fewest ever taken under Simon Goodwin. 50, so nine fewer than
the next best.
Can Port
there.
Adelaide win the premiership?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
I reckon it's open this year. I think Collingwood's probably the favourite at the moment, but I think it's wide open beyond that. And especially with the way that Ken Hinkley is coaching, as you mentioned. Lockie Hunter going to serve a one-match suspension for a bump, which we'll show you a little bit later, as well as will Tom Jonas for a dangerous tackle. We'll go to Ballarat now, where the Western Bulldogs absolutely thrashed Adelaide. Bailey Smith was fantastic in this one, playing a bit more inside with Adam Treloar out.
Yeah, they do some nice tricks with these midfielders. So often they start forward and they come up and play as the extra midfielder. Then the opposition have got a choice. Do you drop off them or do you let them go and have the extra around the ball? Bailey Smith does that as effectively as anyone. He had 37 9-score involvements, 6 tackles. Bailey Dale had a stack of it with 36 and 9-score involvements. I was really disappointed with Adelaide. You know, I thought a lot has been spoken about them this week on the back of that St Kilda performance last week and a few others this year, but they haven't been able to string multiple games in a row together. And if they continue to drop games against sides that are in and amongst them, you've got to start questioning the quality that Adelaide have beaten this year and whether they are genuine finals contenders or whether that conversation will come next year.
Tex Walker rested for this one. No discernible injury as we know it. A bit surprising. They're incredibly inexperienced. So they had 4 players that have played over 100 games, whereas the Western Bulldogs had 12. Considering they've got Gold Coast, West Coast and then a bye in their next month, was this a strange one to make?
Couldn't believe it. And it wouldn't have altered the result. Like, if Taylor Walker plays the way that the game
Thilthorpe as well missed.
Went out, the Western Bulldogs still would have won. But I said this on Friday, it was bizarre to rest Taylor Walker. Perhaps there's an issue that we don't know, but they have called it a rest. If it was a genuine rest, it was a mistake, considering the games against weaker opposition that are coming in the next fortnight or so.
Now, do you reckon Isaac Rankin has anything to worry about here with the match review? Because he had a pretty late bump. He turned his body, but then we're about to show you what Lockie Hunter got suspended for as well. There's some similarities there.
I don't think he's got any issue. He puts his hand down to pick up the ball, turns his body like every under-12 kid is taught. He's going for the footy. This is a little bit different. This is more aggressive and his hands aren't down for a player on the ball. So the way that Rankin will save himself, and he won't get suspended, he went and his priority was the footy. Hunter's priority was Connor Rozee.
All right, let's look at the remaining games in round 10. The blockbuster here is Carlton-Collingwood at the MCG. That game is a sellout. We've also got Hawthorn, West Coast down in Tassie, and the Giants and the Saints finish us off. But I want to get to our Canes question, and it is, how do the Blues beat the high-flying Pies?
You've got to attack him from the midfield. I want to see Carlton beat up Collingwood in the midfield like they did to teams last year. Not only do I want to see them win the contested footy in the clearance, I want to see them bursting from stoppage and the method around stoppage that we saw last year. So far too often, their midfielders have had reasonable numbers this year with little impact. I want big numbers and big impact against a Collingwood midfield who, you know, head-to-head, they should be able to compete with, and finally give Mackay and Curnow some quick ball movement into even numbers inside their forward line.
Massive show, Kane. Heard you had a massive day as well.
It was a big day. It's sore.
See you next week.